All right, it's Wednesday night. It's the Panther-Lair Show here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And Jim will be joining us shortly, I hope, as long as I sent the link to him. Yes, I did. Glad that he'll be tuned in. Look, I don't think there's any question about what we're going to talk about tonight. I think we all know where this conversation is headed and what the main topic is going to be. It's obviously Pitt basketball as the Panthers are mired in another 4-game losing streak. They've lost 8 out of their last 10. They are 14-10 overall. They're 5-8 in the ACC. It's bad and getting worse. And at some point, I think they'll pull out of this slump. They'll win a game. They'll win a couple of games. But it's hard to have any – it's hard to be encouraged by anything they've done. I'm not even plugged in. Oh, man, my microphone wasn't plugged in. So I apologize if that didn't sound very good. Let me turn my microphone back on. Here, that should sound a little bit better. Hopefully the audio is improved there. RJC Man 38 is holding me accountable. He says the media is afraid to hold Pitt Jeff Capel accountable, but he's holding me accountable because I started at 8:33 instead of 8:30. And look at that, I started late and I still didn't even have my microphone plugged in. But I had to get the lights on. So that was the problem. I was over there turning on the studio lights here in our new Panther-Lair studio. So that's why I was delayed. I was turning the lights on. I wanted to look nice and pretty for you, RJC Man. I don't want to say it's hopeless with Pitt basketball, but certainly things are pretty bleak, as it were. You know, we did a morning Pitt. We taped it after the game last night, and I sort of joked on social media this morning that, you know, recording a morning Pitt immediately after a game that tipped off at 9 o'clock, went past 11 o'clock, and ended up as a 20-point blowout didn't exactly put me in the cheeriest mood as I was, recording that. And obviously you add the 20-point loss on top of, all the other losses they've taken, and just sort of the general direction this season has gone. Pretty disappointing overall, and certainly came through on that video. I apologize to anyone who typically listens to the audio podcast. For whatever reason, we couldn't get a good audio rip of today's morning Pitt. It was only the file that I tried to download would only be like 5 minutes long, so you only got the first 5 minutes of the episode when I uploaded it to Apple and all those different places, Spotify and whatnot. So I'm not sure what was going on with that. Hopefully tomorrow's works out a little bit better. Tomorrow's morning Pitt won't be quite as, I wouldn't say angry, just won't be quite as depressing maybe as today's morning Pitt was. I think I've got a fun theme for it, but you can check it out. Let me know what you think. All right, so we got a lot to talk about tonight, obviously, but a big part of the conversation is about Pitt basketball and where the Panthers stand and how it generally looks. If you have comments or questions, you can jump in the chat screen over there. I'm going to try and I was thinking about this earlier today. I'm going to try and go with as much comments and questions from Pitt fans as we possibly can on tonight's show. Really kind of let you guys sound off about the state of Pitt basketball. People are trickling in here as we've been live for a few minutes. If you've got a comment or question, post it over there. We're going to try and read as many of these as we can. Now, if there are 42 of you all saying fire Jeff Capel, we don't need to read every single one of those. And if it's like one person posting 42 times, we don't need to read all of those either. But, what do you think? I mean, where do you stand with things right now? You don't need to make a grand pronouncement about the state of the program, but I mean, how disappointing is this season? And probably part of that is it would depend on where your expectations were coming into the year. A disappointment is sort of guided by expectations, right? If you didn't expect much, then you're probably not going to be all that disappointed if a team struggles. I know for me, I had high expectations for this team. I think I only picked them to lose 5 or 6 games all season. I thought they were going to be really good, or 5 or 6 games in the regular season, I should say. And it didn't work out that way. And so the disappointment is pretty high because the expectations were so high. It's like one of those, the higher the cliff, the more it hurts when you fall off. I don't know where that cliche that I just made up was going, but we definitely talked about it a lot during the football season. The more they kept winning, the more the higher that ledge became that they could potentially fall off of, and fall off of it they ultimately did. All right, let's bring Jim in here and see what he's up to. Jim, I think we would all agree that the higher the expectations you had for this season, the more disappointing it probably is. Do you remember what you predicted when you took the media collection of record predictions before the season started?
24-7.
24-7. Okay, there were a handful of us, right? That were right around that. I forget if I was 25-6 or 26-5. I think I might have been 25-6, and Carter might have been 26-5.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I sent that to Steven and Chris the other day, our Post Gazette friends, and we were joking because at the time we made those predictions, probably the smartest guy on our beat, Jerry DePaula, came in the lowest. He came in at I think it was like 19-12, and everyone was like so much higher on the team, and like whenever we were making the predictions, we're like, Jerry, what do you know? And he's like, I don't know. I haven't seen him play yet. So I don't know. Always listen to Jerry. Jerry's one step ahead of us to this day.
See, but it wasn't even like he thought they were going to be bad. He just was saying, I just don't even know. I remember like the day after you did that, I think there was like a Narduzzi press conference, maybe like 2 days later, and I was sitting there and Will Graves from the AP walks in and he's like, seriously, man, 5 or 6 losses? Like, what are you guys doing? Why would you predict that? And I'm like, I don't know. I think they're going to be really, really good. I think they're bringing back Lowe, who's going to be good. I think they're bringing back Leggett, who's going to be good. They're adding Corn, all this stuff. We all had these reasons to expect them to be really good. And I think that's why this disappointment seems to sting even more than maybe, the Femi Odekali year or those other years with Xavier Johnson and Trey McGowan's. Like, I think the expectations were really up heading into this season. There was a feeling that over, the 2 years prior to this, and then this would be the extension of it, was this trending upward for the program, that it was headed in the right direction, that it was figured out, it was fixed. And now here they are, and they've lost 8 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, they look just as bad and disorganized and ineffective and unengaged or disengaged on the court as they did in those first few years. And like, for me, and I think a lot of people, like, Jim, I thought we were past that. I thought we were past that stage of Pitt basketball, but here it is, right? I mean, doesn't it feel like those years?
It does, and there's just really no way around it. I mean, like, they are completely collapsing. It's very reminiscent of those first 3 seasons, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, this is a team that Jeff Capel handpicked. I mean, these are all guys he recruited, and these are all guys he had success with last year for the most part. I mean, you look at Ishmael Leggett. He was ACC Sixth Man of the Year last year. At times, Jalen Lowe was better than Bub Carrington. Zach Austin was a good piece. The Diaz-Graham twins, this is their 3rd year. I mean, this is a team that has a lot of pieces that he wanted to be around. This is a team that he has won games with. So it's very puzzling that they have just completely fallen apart. And the weird thing is, it's like each game, it's something different. I mean, it's not necessarily, they get out-rebounded a lot. But some games, they don't turn the ball over at all. Some games, they turn it over like 10 times in the first half. And there's just no really good reason to diagnose why each game it's something different. So, I mean, they're 2-8 over their past 10. They are what they are. They're a bad team right now. I mean, they are a middle of the pack ACC team. I guess metrically, like, net rankings, they're still top 50. I mean, they're not a team that's like legitimately contending for the NCAA tournament right now. I mean, I think we're past that. I mean, yeah, they could beat Miami on Saturday. That doesn't move the needle. I mean, they lost every single chance over the past 3 to 4 weeks to pick up a quad 1 win. They've lost every chance to win a game in general. I mean, they're just a bad basketball team right now, and I don't know. I think we're surprised. I think the guys in the locker rooms are surprised. I think Jeff Capel's a little surprised because they were good at the beginning of the season. They were doing good things. This is not the same team we saw in November. So I don't know if anyone has the answers as to why it got so bad so quickly. But that's just where they are right now.
Yeah, and now at this point, they have one quad 1 game left, right? Louisville is the only one, because NC State, I just looked it up, is 118 in the net. So as of right now, I mean, Notre Dame's 100. Like there are no other opportunities. Like, you're right, they've wasted every opportunity, and then they took that Virginia loss just to make it extra bad. Like to just lock it up. You know, I mean, I don't think they were going to get there if they finished 1-10 in quad 1 games anyway. But adding that, I guess it's a quad 3 loss now. I mean, that just sewn it up, and it's just. And I know you said like, oh, they've lost like each game for different reasons. I kind of feel like it is, but like turnovers are just part of like they play a really inefficient offense. You know what I mean? They don't shoot well. They haven't been shooting well. Part of that is because they don't give the ball to their best shooters, but that's another topic we can get into. But they turn it over. They don't pass well. They don't screen well. They don't move the ball well or shoot well. They don't defend well. They don't rebound well. And in a game, you know, some games they're able to like overcome some of those things and make it close, like the Carolina game or the Clemson game. And some games it just all comes to a head, like the Virginia game or this game last night, and they just get absolutely throttled. I mean, just absolutely throttled. I mean, that first half was a clinic by SMU. And, you know, as SMU was as good against Pitt as anybody has been this season, like Duke included, you know, in the first half at least. SMU got a little sloppy in the second half. But, I mean, in the first half, I guess Duke probably looked better against Pitt, but not by much. You know, like I think that was the best we've seen a team play on both ends of the court because they made life really difficult on defense and they scored at will. There was, and you knew they would. They're a good team. They're a good offensive team. They shoot well, but like, damn, Pitt just put up no resistance. And I don't know. Are you like I always tend away from this because I don't know for a lot of reasons. I mean, are you worried though about losing the team, about the team giving up or fading and just not really showing any life when they play Miami on Saturday?
I mean, I think at this point, it's definitely a genuine concern. I mean, the way this team has operated over the past, this 10-game stretch, this 2-8 stretch, they get down. They dig holes. I mean, I think I wrote last night, over these 10 games, they've fallen behind in the first half by double digits 6 times. I mean, almost every game, they're digging themselves these great holes. I mean, then you know, you throw in the fact that they've been rebounded 7 out of the past 10 games. I mean, there are just troubling trends that aren't going away. Then, okay, then let's just throw in the fact that, yeah, Damian Dunn's not going to play Saturday, and we don't even know if Jalen Lowe's going to play Saturday. So for a team that's not particularly deep, you know, losing a guy, maybe losing another guy, I don't know. I mean, I watched a little bit of Miami. I think they were on ahead of Pitt at the 7 o'clock game, and it's like, yeah, they're not good. They're down to an interim coach, but isn't that the same thing that Virginia was? Like, yeah, I mean, yeah. like they're not immune. They're not at a point where they can walk into a gym and just say we're better than you. I know everyone in Vegas is going to have Pitt as an 8.5, 9-point favorite, whatever it's going to be. I'm not so. I wouldn't be comfortable taking Pitt with the points in that one at all.
Yeah, like they don't have a line out yet, do they?
No, it's usually the day before, but I mean, just looking at record-wise, I mean, Pitt should be favored. They're going to be favored, but I wouldn't be comfortable taking them.
No, and and honestly, even though they're at home, they shouldn't be favored by much. And yeah, I've been keeping track of those first half deficits. It's remarkable. Like I think Louisville had the smallest first half deficit against Pitt in all of their ACC games this year, and that was 6. Everybody else was 8 or more. How many did they play? 13 games. So 1, 2, 3, 10 out of 13 games they've been down by at least 9 in the first half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like you said, 7 games they've been down by double digits in the first half, including the Cal game when they were down 16 and came back and won. Virginia and SMU both were up 20 on Pitt in the first half. They dig these giant holes. Now, I mean, last night, it's not like the giant hole made that big a difference. Pitt still lost the second half. Some of these games, they've dug a giant hole in the first half and then won the second half, but it wasn't enough to overcome those big deficits. But I don't know why they start so slow. I don't know why they're so bad on both ends of the court in the first half and only marginally better in the second half. Like, we don't have answers to any of these things. We don't have answers to personnel questions too, but I am going to talk about personnel. What personnel questionable move or decision irks you the most? Which one stands out to you as being the strangest this season, if there's one?
Like the whole season?
Let's go ACC schedule or like the last 10 games, last 12 games, whatever.
I mean, it's something I've been saying for a while. I mean, it was whenever like Cam Corden's playing like 35 to 38 minutes a game. I mean, that's just not who he is. You're a team that gets constantly out rebounded. He's the center on the floor. There's obviously a common denominator there. I mean, I think at his best, Cam Corrin can provide 18 to 22 minutes. I think Guillermo Diaz-Graham should be splitting time there. But another one is like Brandon Cummings shouldn't have disappeared entirely. Like we've talked about this before. Yes, he struggles on defense, but so do a lot of guys. So there are certain guys that get punished more for the exact same things as some of the starters. So I don't know. Brandon Cummings can shoot. They're a team that has struggled to put the ball in the basket, especially from three this season. They've had just long stretches where they aren't making shots. So Brandon Cummings and Jorge Diaz-Graham are arguably their two best outside threats, and there are guys that just have virtually disappeared over the entire month of January.
Yeah. I've been putting this stat out there. 8 games where Damian Dunn has been out. Brandon Cummings is averaging 11 points per game, while playing 18 minutes. You mentioned Cam Corrin. 24 games this season Pitt has played. In 20 of those, he's had 2 or fewer offensive rebounds. Like, what did you bring him here to do? Get offensive rebounds and finish putbacks, right? Like, that was a big part of what he was supposed to do here. And he's had more than 2 offensive rebounds just 4 times this season. I can't get over that. I had another one. Oh, he had 6 or fewer total rebounds in 19 out of 24 games, which is a pretty bad number. But like 2 or fewer offensive rebounds 20 times this season. Like, you're just getting nothing out of him. And there's a bigger conversation. I think we've touched on it in the past. I'm going to write about it in the 321 column on Friday about the value of post scoring, whether it really matters if you can get like post scoring from a player like Corrin. I mean, obviously, if you have a Zach Edey or somebody like that, that's one thing. But what you really need from your center, I think, if you're Pitt, unless you can get that amazing superstar stud, which you can't, you just need a guy who can get offensive rebounds and finish putbacks. Like, you don't need to feed the ball down low. You don't need to run your offense, maybe occasionally pick and rolls, but you really just need somebody who can get offensive rebounds and either kick it back out or finish the play. And he's not doing that. And so he had, what was the game? Did he have 17 against Carolina or something? Did he score well in that game or something like that? Well, I think I looked. His 5 highest scoring games of his career, Florida State and Pitt, his teams were 2 and 3 in those games. He had 25 points. And credit, I wish I could remember who pointed this out. They said it over the summer. They're like, I don't know if post scoring matters all that much, because Cam Corrin had 25 against Pitt last year and they still lost by 15. And I always remember that, like, you know what? Actually, this is a good point. Like, he went off. He owned that game. It was like, holy cow, this guy is killing them. And Pitt still won by 15. Like, it just didn't matter. It's just not that big of a factor. So what you really just need is a guy who can clean up the glass, and he's not doing that. I know you, like you said, and it's the same thing, and we've said it for a few weeks. I know you give up something defensively, and maybe not even that much with Guillermo. You give up something rebounding wise with Guillermo, but like, you might as well take the guy who is 11 of 22 from 3 in his last 7 games, right?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at Guillermo had 6 offensive rebounds last night. I mean, that's more than Cam Corrin's had in the past 5 games, probably. I mean, there was a stretch where he didn't have any for like 3 games in a row. So, I mean, you give up a little bit, but like I've been saying this the past couple of weeks, like when he's on the floor offensively, he doesn't demand post touches. Like, he can play within whatever they're trying to do offensively. It just feels like sometimes like they're just trying to force something to Cam Corrin, and it's just not there. And like he's provided some good scoring games. He's had some good moments, even during this stretch where the team struggled. Like, I thought he's had games where he's bounced back and looked okay. But for the greater sum, the entire season, I mean, he just hasn't done that much. And like, I get what Jeff Capel was trying to do. I think he was like, okay, like Federico was just that bad offensively. Like, you didn't even know if you would pass it to him in the post, if he would dunk it. Like, and I get that. Like, there were certain games where he would just fumble the ball all over the place. But they almost went like too much in the other direction, where they gave up so much defensively, and you're just not gaining that much. Like, the offense Cam Corrin brings, like, he is a better offensive player than Federico. It's been a net negative more than a positive. So, I mean, that's just kind of where they are right now.
And like I think the rebounding. I think there was a feeling like, okay, going to give up a little bit on defense, but you're going to get more in rebounding and offensive scoring, and he's not doing that. And like that offensive rebound number is amazing. The Guillermo had 6 last night. Over under 1.5 number of times in Cam Corrin's career he has had at least 6 offensive rebounds.
I would say 0.
The answer is under. He had 9 at Florida 2 years ago.
Okay,
In
so
a loss.
One in 3 seasons.
One time in his college career has he had more than 5 offensive rebounds. He's had 5 3 times. One of them was the Murray State game this year. Like what are we missing, Jim? Like what are we missing here? I'm at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for words.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've said in the past couple of off seasons that Jeff Capel's done really well in the portal. Like he has found guys that have fit. This is probably the first year it didn't work. I mean, you look at Cam Corrin, they're not getting a lot there. You're looking at Damian Dunn. I know he's had injuries, but like, I don't know, over these past 10 games, like it's not like he was a huge difference maker, but like, I mean, prior seasons, yeah, like Blake Hinson was awesome. Jamarius Burton was great. Ishmael Leggett was a great pickup. Like he was really good in the portal and he wasn't missing. And I don't know if he was due to just have a bad year or a bad haul, or they just didn't find the right guys that fit. I know this isn't an exact science, but like kind of feels like that's what it is. Like they just didn't have a good portal haul and they're kind of suffering because of it.
This and I guess it was sort of pre-portal, but like when we talked about like Capel's transfers and guys that he brought in, I mean, at the bottom of the list was Dan Oladapo. You know what I mean? Like that was who just didn't do much. You know, I think he started 4 games, didn't really play much, didn't really contribute much. Like Corrin and Dunn, I don't know if I put them below Oladapo because he just didn't play, but there's no other transfer addition I would put below what those 2 guys have done this year. You know, like, I mean, if you go back, maybe if you don't want to count Oladapo, that 21-22 season, kind of right on the like the beginning of the transfer portal. But I mean, everybody else, Burton, Cummings, Mo Gee, Greg Elliott, I don't even know if you count Nike Sabandi. He might have been like sort of pre-portal-ish. You know, like the guys that came in last year, yeah, Leggett and Austin. I mean, I just like who else has done less and been less helpful to this team than these 2 guys this year. I think you're absolutely right because we gave them a lot of praise and it was like, wow, they really just did not miss until this year. They did. All right. I want to get, like I said, I was going to let Pitt fans sound off. And now we're 25 minutes in and we haven't heard anything from them. So Josh Newark posted this before we even went live. Says, during the Stallings and early Capel eras, watching Pitt basketball felt like a chore. I hated that feeling. Last night against SMU reminded me of that feeling. I think part of it is the sense of hopelessness. I'm watching a team on a downward spiral, and I don't see anything that brings hope about next year unless there's a serious overhaul in the roster. I hope I am wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I just brought up my play-by-play from last night to see if there was a moment, maybe when they went up 20 on a fast break alley-oop, 36-16. That might have been the moment when I was like, although that was only 4 minutes left in the half, I think I gave up sooner than that. I don't know if there was a specific, around the 6-minute mark, Jalen Lowe had committed a turnover and then committed a foul. That put him up 18. I don't know if there was a point where I fully felt like it was out of reach, but it was a chore to watch, and it didn't help that it started at 9 freaking o'clock at night. That was a bit of a, that put everyone, I think, in a worse mood to watch the game, but it did. It felt hopeless. And they came back from down 16 against Cal, but I have no faith in this team. Well, let me go on the other side for a second, Jim. Was there a point in the second half when you were like, maybe they might be able to fight back? Like they cut it to 13 with 11 and a half minutes left to go in the game. They were scoring. Brandon Cummings was scoring. Did you allow yourself to think they might be able to battle back?
Not really, because I kind of like I kind of break down the game in segments, and like I when I'm on the live chat on our website, it's like I update every 4 minutes or every TV timeout, and every time I look down, I'd be like, okay, they were down 16 at halftime, now it's 15. Under 12 timeout, it's still 15. Like they were playing better, they were playing even with them in the second half, but they were doing nothing to like break into it. Like SMU, like they were almost inviting them to get back into the game. It's not like they played a great second half, but like all Pitt could do was just play equal with them, and like playing equal with a team that you were already down 16 points, it doesn't get you anywhere. So like every TV timeout, I'd look down at the score and be like, okay, it seems like they're playing better, but the score never changed from 16.
Yeah, I think there was that stretch, and it was right around the time Jalen Lowe got hurt, and he was out, and he came back in, and then he went back out, and they went on like an 11-3 run or so. I think it was about 11-3 run, and that cut it to 13. And it was like, okay, not only have they made shots, they made consecutive shots. They've been getting stops. They've been getting turnovers. They're active. They're getting in the passing lanes, and so I thought they could maybe make a game out of this. And then, I mean, SMU just went on a run. Pitt never made consecutive baskets. Well, maybe one more time made consecutive baskets. They just couldn't get stops. Like, as bad as their offense was in the first half, their defense was worse. Like, this is such a bad defensive team. And I think it's a point you made earlier, and we've talked about it a bunch of times. So, like, you might as well just commit to it. You know what I mean? Like, I was talking to our friend Jerry DePaula today, and I was talking about Brandon Cummings. He's like, yeah, I just don't think he's good defensively. I'm like, none of them are. Nobody's good defensively. So you might as well just try to score. I don't know if you're a good enough scoring team to outscore some of these opponents, but you might as well just try to score. RJC Man 38 says, I can't wait to hear the excuses from the Capel apologists. I'm tired of local media, too afraid to hold Capel accountable, and that aggravates me most. What do we do to hold them accountable? Did we have this conversation last week?
I think did we say anything positive in the past half hour about this basketball team? Like, are we trying to pretend it's not happening?
Well, this was posted 15 minutes before we started, so maybe he was expecting. But if you watched the morning Pitt today, I was pretty ornery last night. I was not real thrilled about what was going on. Let's see. Pitt Tough Guy says, will Pitt be paying the full $20.5 million revenue sharing, which begins in July? If not, how much and where's the money coming from? Alan Green in Pat Bostic's interview said no plan in place yet. So obviously a quick change of conversation topic there, but it's interesting to talk about the revenue sharing, which should begin in July. I like the House settlement still hasn't been approved by all parties. I mean, there's still some rubber stamping that has to be done. But it seems like it's all headed in that direction. What Alan Green said on Pat Bostic's interview was basically like, look, it's what I just said. It hasn't been officially formalized yet. And so there's still some changes that could come, that it could look different than we expect it to. And I think he said they're planning for a number of contingencies and kind of to try and be ready for it. So I think they do have a plan. He's not going to say what that plan is publicly, but I think they do have a plan. And I think they do intend to pay the full revenue sharing, which, and people don't want to hear it, but the sooner they accept it, the better. It's really hard to pay $20.5 million in revenue sharing and $15 or $12 million in a buyout, right? Like, yep. And you know what else? This is my new favorite phrase. It makes more sense to spend $7 million on a roster than it does to spend 25 or 30 million on a buyout, a new coach, and a roster. Would you agree?
I would agree. I mean, I think that's just kind of where things are. So, I mean, I don't think this particular question was like inferring like, oh, how are they going to pay this buyout? But I mean,
right. No, I know. I know. But the money thing, but I do think like anytime we talk about the revenue sharing, I think it's relevant largely because anytime somebody brings up the buyout, I bring up revenue sharing. I want people to keep in mind that like this isn't money Pitt just has laying around. This is the same budget that they had last year, and now they've got to carve a new $20 million out of it. They didn't get some giant influx of cash to pay for this $20 million in revenue sharing. They have to carve this out of the same budget that probably was in the red a year ago. So, you're already, rubbing two nickels together to try and make ends meet on this revenue sharing. And you know what? Like, find a way to funnel like $7 million into putting a basketball roster together, and they'll win 20 games next year and make the NCAA tournament. Like you can, like, no matter what you think about the coach and how he coaches in basketball in particular, if you can get like a handful of really good guys, which $5 million, $7 million should be able to get you, you'll go win a bunch of games because it's basketball. Coaching is super important. It is. But also, if you've got the dudes, you can have a lot of success.
No, I agree with that. And I mean, I think if you look at this year's team, if they had a couple different parts, if they had an extra shooter, an extra guy that could rebound, they'd have 5 more wins right now, and they'd be closer to the bubble or on the right side of it. I mean, it doesn't take much to make up difference in basketball. I mean, it's a couple points here and there. It's an extra shooter. It's an extra weapon. So I think they can be close. But yeah, I mean, that's where the money needs to go, is on the talent, not the guy that runs the talent.
Yeah. Also, like, it just, you can't spend money to make someone go away when you have so many other things that money could go to, which would help you succeed. What this is way ahead of it, but just because we're talking about it, like in some of these terms, what would be your like 2 priorities, like the absolute must-have player types / positions in the portal when this season ends
for basketball?
Yeah,
they need more outside shooting. I mean, you look at the 2 previous seasons, like obviously like Blake Hidson was, a unique player, but like they need something to space the floor. I watched these 2 guards drive in the middle of the lane, get stuck, and have nowhere to kick it to. I mean, I think for this team to be successful, for the way they try to play, they need more shooting. So, I mean, I would think number 1 is shooter, and number 2 is a viable 25-minute a game big guy that can rebound more than 4 rebounds a game.
Rebounding, that would be huge. I would still contend they have the shooters. I would just contend that the shooters don't shoot. 13-9, the poster on the message boards, who does a great job, pointed out that like Guillermo, Jorge, Amsal, Delilich, and Brandon Cummings combined to shoot 5 of 14 last night. That's not great. It's about 35-36%. The other 3 shooters, Lowe, Leggett, and Austin, combined to go 4 of 21, which is 19%. And they took 21 3-pointers as opposed to 14 for the other guys who actually can shoot. I would contend they have the shooters. I would contend those guys are out there to kick to. Amsal Delilich played, what did he play last night? 9 minutes or 8 minutes or something like that. And he did his classic. They should rename that corner of the court Bosnia. And because he just stands over there and doesn't move. He doesn't leave. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think it's on him not moving around. Like, pass him the ball. He took 1 shot last night. Like, if there's anything this guy can do, it's shoot 3-pointers, and he goes up and he had 1 3-point attempt and 2 field goal attempts. Like, you're not even like giving yourself a chance if you don't pass him the ball to shoot, but instead you've got, Ishmael Leggett driving in there and shooting 17 times. You've got Zach Austin going 2 of 10. Zach Austin going 2 of 8 from 3. Have you how close are you to saying Zach Austin's early shooting success was a fluke this year?
I don't know. I mean, I look at his numbers, and like he's always hovered around like 31 to 34%. And I don't know the exact number right now, but I think that's exactly where he is. So like, I don't know if it's just kind of water, finding its level a little bit, but like, I think that's just who he is. I mean, obviously, like right now he's going through a slump, but I mean, I think that's just kind of a team-wide thing. I don't know if that's just like him individually. It just seems like nobody's playing well, but like, I don't know if he took this big step forward as a shooter. I think he's just kind of being who he always is.
First 17 games this season, he shot 45% from 3. The last 7, he has shot 30% from three, 29.8, as a matter of fact. My issue is in the last 7 games, he's attempted 45 threes. Like, if he's going to go into a slump like that, if he's going to find his level, and I think you're probably right, he doesn't need to shoot 6 threes per game. You know, like,
yeah. I don't know. I think there's like part of it is like, I don't know if you've like caught it on a couple of the broadcasts, but like there's like some sort of like NBA intrigue with him just because he's this freak athletic defender and he was shooting 45%. And I don't know if like that he was made aware of this, that like NBA teams are starting like to be intrigued by him. And now there is, I don't know if you heard, there was the Mavericks general manager was at the game last night.
At the SMU game, the Pitt SMU game.
Yeah, I think
he
he just made like a really unpopular trade in the league. But I don't know. I don't know if that's like part of Zach Austin's like trying to shoot a bunch of threes that like somehow it got into his peripherals that like teams are somewhat intrigued by his athleticism and shooting. But ever since then, he has not shot the ball well.
I'm surprised they didn't mention that on the broadcast, that the Mavericks GM was there.
Yeah.
I would have thought they would have brought that up or something. Or maybe if Theo Pinson had talked to him or not. Like, the thing with Austin, I don't feel like he's necessarily forcing the 3-point shots. Like, his shots are generally good. You know, he doesn't have like a hand in his face. He's not like, you know, off balance. He's not shooting from the logo. He's getting open looks. He's just not hitting anything. He's been missing that, you know, last 7 games, 29.8%. He's shooting poorly. And so the ball needs to keep moving. It needs to get to Jorge Diaz-Graham. It needs to get to Brandon Cummings. Tom Saldelovich would be nice. William Richter says, I think Cam Corrin needs to work with DeJuan Blair for his rebounding. This team has no leader to reel them in. There's 2 separate things there. DeJuan Blair and Cam Corrin are very different people. Like, very, very different in their demeanors, in their attitudes, in their approach to basketball, probably their approach to life. I'm not sure Cam Corrin would learn a lot from DeJuan Blair. I think he would get a bloody nose and a couple black eyes during that session, and he would not want to do that again. I'm not sure there would be a lot to gain from that. And then the team leadership, like, I just have a hard, like, I don't know how we're supposed to see that. Is it like Jalen Lowe makes 3, you know, goes on an 8-0 run at the end of what game was that? Was that the Carolina game? That he went on an 8-0 run. You remember that?
I know the Virginia
Carolina game at the recent game. I think it was the Carolina game at the Peterson Event Center.
That sounds right.
And he went on, not the Wake game. I'm looking at my notes here. Not Syracuse. Come on, man. Now I'm just skipping too many pages at once. I think it was the Carolina game.
We'll go with that.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Now I'm annoyed because I can't find it. Oh, you know what? I know why I can't find it, because I forgot my legal pad that day, and so I had to write it on the back of the notes. Not these notes, but the other notes. Anyway, like, is that what we're talking about? Like, because people often say that. Like, who's the leader on this team? They need somebody to take control of the team. Is that what you're talking about? Like, do you think that, like, how would we see that? How would that be displayed to us, like team leadership?
I don't know. I generally don't love those questions, like whether it's football or basketball, like who's the team leader? Who's the guy getting guys in charge? I'm like, I don't know. It's always the seniors. So like that's never something that really like moves the needle for me. But I don't know, like when things are struggling, is there somebody there that can just pull them together? Clearly not. If they keep losing games, like clearly that person's not there. But I don't know if that's a lack of leadership or just lack of coaching, lack of talent. Just things are spiraling, and it doesn't. You could be the best leader in the world, but if things are spiraling, like I don't know, it kind of just that trumps leadership, I think. So I don't know. Leadership doesn't do much for me.
Yeah, the best way we ever really get an indication, I think, is when people talk about it. When the players or the coaches talk about it, they would talk about Jamarius Burton and how he conducted himself, or Nelly Cummings. I think after the Virginia game, somebody asked Jorge Diaz-Graham, like, who are the voices in the locker room trying to like lead the team right now? And he said something like, well, we have a lot of voices in there. There's a lot of people in there that are, and I was like, oh, that's probably not a good thing. You should probably have 1 or 2 guys kind of stepping up there. But RJC Man 38 is a super chatter. He says, The buyout is high. Must kick baby Capel out the door. Okay.
All right.
There was another comment, somewhat along those lines. Here, Beverly Furl says, it seems like the athletic department is nervous to make a move because they're afraid that things will get worse. You never get to your goals operating out of fear. We need bold change. I mean, that's all well and good, but you have to be smart. Like I don't think you get the return on investment. You know what I mean? Of paying a buyout and paying somebody to go away and all the money you would have to then spend to bring in a new coach and a whole new roster, because you lose your whole roster when you fire your coach these days. I don't think it's about living in your fears. It's not about Mike Tomlinisms. It's not about being afraid things will get worse. It's about like what makes the most sense financially. If Jeff Capel can spend money to put together a team, can he put together a team that wins? With enough money, probably. And he, even after he put this year's team together, he still said, I need more money. I need NIL. And so it's I don't think it's about being afraid of doing worse. Just financially, I think it's just not smart to make that kind of move.
Right. And you look at it from like Alan Green's perspective. I mean, like the guy's been on the job a couple months. He's not going to come in and just do this to Pitt and be like, okay, like this coach isn't working. We need $30 million to buy him out. Let's do it right now. We're not living in our fears. We need to do this. That doesn't make sense for him. I mean, like he needs the lay of the land. He needs to understand what this athletic department's about. He has to figure out how to come up with $20 million to pay for his players. He doesn't need another $30 million to pay for a coach that he's not going to coach his team anymore. I mean, that's just what it is. Like, I don't think Pitt's afraid to make a move. I think Pitt's just kind of handcuffed in a way.
Yep, I agree. Dave Yark says, unless Pitt has a miracle finish this season, which is unlikely, Jeff Capel has to self-reflect, realize he's taken this program as far as he's capable. In year 7, you just can't collapse like this. I agree with some of that. I think there's some strong self-reflection. You know what? And I think there was a lot of self-reflection last year after last season, and I think it was reflected in how they scheduled in the non-conference. I think he took a long, hard look at okay, why didn't we make it in the NCAA tournament? What was missing? What do we have to do differently? And he went out and conducted some things differently and approached the non-conference schedule differently, highlighted by that Ohio State game. And so, there was some reflection last year. I think this year will certainly merit it as well. I don't think this year's teams have the issues that some of those first 4 teams had, but they've obviously got some problems. There's no reason this team should be in this position right now. And Jeff Capel, even if he may or may not do it publicly, needs to find an answer. He needs to find an answer himself, and if it's an answer that reflects on him, he needs to approach that accordingly. Here's an interesting question. Paul Sebastian says, would Bub Carrington staying have made a difference this year? How much of a difference would Bub Carrington have made on this team, Jim?
They'd be better. I still think there would be some of the same issues that have plagued this team with them, and they were still with them last year. I mean, they weren't a good rebounding team last year. I mean, that was just like one of the things they had to deal with. I mean, I still think a lot of the same mistakes would still be there. Would they be better than 14-10 as is? Probably. I mean, having an NBA caliber guard on the roster, right, that changes things a lot, but I still don't think that would make them like the perfect team. I still think they would have their flaws. I still think they would have had some dumb losses. And for as good as Bub is, and even right now, he's 19? He would still be that immature sophomore. He would still be those times whenever Jalen gets flustered, Bub would get flustered too. I mean, a lot of those things it's not like Bub was an All-American junior that didn't come back for his senior year. He wasn't a finished product. He still isn't. So I don't know if he fixes everything. He makes them better, but not significantly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Ethan Chekhov replied to that, said absolutely he would have made a difference. He's a first-round NBA talent, but I still say Pitt underperforms expectations. I mean, a couple of thoughts on that. One, with Bub back, the expectations would have been even higher than they were right now. I mean, people would have been like going crazy with their expectations. I think it would have helped them defensively. Like shooting, obviously, it would be, they would have another shooter out there. I think defensively, he would have been an upgrade. I think he was a better defender than Jalen Lowe last year. I think he would have been a better defender than Jalen Lowe this year. We never really talked much about Jalen Lowe's defense in the offseason. That was never really factored into the offseason expectations. I think Bub would be an improvement and an upgrade there. It wouldn't have helped the rebounding. It wouldn't have helped the post defense. And I still don't know. I guess it would have, it would have added shooting. I think he would have been a better shooter than some, although he wasn't a great shooter. He was probably, what was he last year? Like 31, 32% or something. He wasn't
just streaky.
Yeah. So it would have made them better. They'd probably be better than 14-10. They probably wouldn't have 2 4-game losing streaks and 8 out of 10. But, let's see. Pitt WVU says the fall off of Pittsburgh sports definitely needs to be studied. Pitt is just like the Steelers. The only people you can blame are the people at the top who keep giving extensions to coaches who give you average results. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a thought on it. Sure. Maybe some extensions. You always decide if they're a good idea or not in retrospect, right? And immediately after Capel's extension, he has struggled. So that looks challenging. Somebody brought up an interesting point on the board because that extension was over the summer, right?
Yes.
Remember that? Okay. Somebody brought up an interesting point on the boards. Like if Joan Gable knew she was going to make the move she was going to make in September, should she have held off and let the new AD have input on whether or not to extend? I forget where he was. How much did they add on? Was it 3 years?
I want to say, I felt like 3.
So he was going to go through 27, 28.
I think it was 27. Now he's through 30.
Okay. So, right now it's, 24-25 season. That means you're heading into, still being like 3 years out. So it probably wasn't necessary to do it. I don't know. It's an interesting point. Did you see that post on the board of somebody saying like maybe Joan Gable should have let the new AD, if she knew she was going to make that move a couple months later?
I just don't know her line of thinking. Like, I don't know whenever her and like Heather's disagreement or whatever kind of came to a head. Like, I don't know whenever she made that decision, like, we need to move on. So it's kind of hard in retrospect.
Yeah. Matt Chrissy says, I was at the game last night, looked lethargic, uninterested, and sloppy. It was my first Pitt basketball game I've attended, and I left at halftime. Same with the football game. Which one was worse, Jim? The Pitt SMU football game or the Pitt SMU basketball game?
Probably football, just because they were 7-0 and like there was like a lot of excitement in the game. They were ranked top 20 at the time, and like they just got absolutely boat raced, and it was an absolute beatdown. I think I disliked that one more because I flew out at like 7:30 the next day. So like I was like, I'm not even going to bed. Like I just watched this terrible football game. I'm gonna write about it to go to the airport.
Man, that's tough. Because they were both just like domination from the start. You know what I mean? Like Pitt was totally non-competitive in like both games, and like almost remarkably so. They both ended up being blowout losses. They both ended up being a showcase for several players on the other team. Like I'm looking if there was ever even a point. I guess the first media timeout last night, they were only down 4. They made a bunch of threes early. Like both teams like were shooting threes, and Pitt was making threes early. So maybe it looked like they can be competitive as opposed to like, the football game, SMU's first possession was when Rashad Battle didn't tackle that guy, right? And they went for a long run. So
I don't know. I mean, I think SMU went up 23-13 around like 11 minutes in the first half, and it never got under double digits after that. So
Yeah.
it was just like, all right, like it was like once that happened, it was over. So that kind of
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like there was a little less than 5 minutes last night where it was competitive, as opposed to the football game where there wasn't even 5 minutes where it was
yeah.
competitive, right? Because wasn't that missed tackle play, was that a third down too? Where they like it was like, oh, they almost got off, like it was the
It
first
was.
drive, going to get like a 3 and out, or maybe they had already picked up one first down, but they were going to get a stop and get them off. It was third and long, and like, no,
Nope.
just not even. I don't know. That's a small school too. That arena only holds like 7,000. I don't know if you saw that.
It's like walking around. It's an interesting place. Like small school. It was more like SEC like than I expected in terms of what people wore to the football game. A lot of cowboy boots on the guys, a lot of dresses with the girls. Their football, they don't have parking lots. They have like a grove type situation, like an Ole Miss. I think they call it. So instead of tailgating, they call it boulevarding because they all line up on this boulevard and they have these fancy cars and everyone's drinking cocktails. It was everyone. I forget. I talked to one of the Pitt football trainers, one of the guys I know, before the game, and he was like, this place makes Duke look like Pitt. And
I was trying to like the comparison I kept coming up with was Virginia, even though Virginia's enrollment is like twice what I think SMU's undergrad enrollment is only like 7,000 or something like that. Virginia's is like 17, but I kept thinking they were like the Virginia of Dallas. Like if you put the University of Virginia in Dallas, that would be the comparison. But even like what you just described doesn't really sound like anything I've seen in Charlottesville. So
it's a school for 7,000 and of kids that live in Dallas and all their parents are millionaires.
Yes.
That is exactly what SMU is, like to a T.
Yeah. Pitt Tough Guy says, according to Commonwealth Pitt Stairs report, the Pitt AD deficit for 2024 was $45 million, $236 million since 2019. Where's the money coming from to cover the $20.5 million player pay? And that's the $20.5 million question, Pitt Tough Guy. We don't know where that money is coming from for the revenue sharing, but Pitt has to find a way to come up with it in order to stay competitive and be competitive. So all these other things people want to spend money on, like coaches' buyouts, that's not an option because this is the number one priority. If you are going to stay at the big kids table, you have to find a way to come up with this money. Scroll through. Pippi WVU says, instead of trying to make them Pittsburgh tough and fight everybody every game, how about we play together and pass the ball? LOL. I mean, I think they could use some more toughness at a few key positions. I think Cam Corrin, like, I don't think he took a hard foul against that 7-2 freshman at all last night. He took a lot of fouls. He got, called for 3 in the first half, but I don't think a single one of them was a hard foul, a legitimately hard foul on that freshman. You know what I mean? Like, who is bigger than him and probably weighs more than him. So I understand, but like, you could at least like get your money's worth out of your fouls, right?
Yeah, there wasn't anything that Pitt did last night to make an SMU guy second guess themselves. Like, they were completely comfortable doing everything they want to do on offense. I think they averaged 83 points a game or 82, and they scored 83 last night. I think they're the top shooting 3-point shooting team in the ACC. They made 50% last night. They were completely comfortable in everything they wanted to do offensively. And sometimes you need to knock a guy off their rhythm. You need to, when they cut across the lane, kind of stick out an elbow, make them think twice about it. And like, I don't know who on that Pitt team right now is doing those kind of like extra things.
Yeah. Luke Olszewski says, can we still go to March Madness? Sure. Yeah. Oh, you know what I wanted to look up? What do you think NC State's record was? What was NC State's record last year after 24 games? You have a guess?
I'll say 15-9, like slightly better than this.
I don't know what it was, but I know that they finished the season with 15 losses. One of them was against Purdue in the Final Four. So that means they finished the regular season with 14 losses, which means they were probably right around where Pitt is, right? Like, because they got hot at the end of the regular season.
So 17 and
no,
14.
they didn't. I'm sorry, they lost 4 in a row to lose at the end of the regular season, and they lost 5 out of 6 to finish the regular season. So they got hot when they got to the ACC tournament, but they did not have a very good record, right? Like they were not in good shape. It's not the kind of thing you would count on. It's not the kind of thing that you're going to rest your hopes on that they can have an NC State like run. I still think their talent is good enough that they could play in March, but the way they're playing, no. I mean, yes, by the math, can they still go to March Madness? Yes, they can. Is it likely? Very, very slim chances.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, you look at these final 7 games, like, they're, like, for as bad as they played and, like, how it seems like they're never going to win a game again, like, they're going to be, like, favored in 6 of them. Like, that's just the reality. Yeah. Like, so, like, I don't know. If you start figuring it out and just beating those teams, you're probably not going to beat Louisville down there, but if you win those 6 games, I don't know. That gets you 20 and 11 in the regular season, and this is a team that has really no business being in contention of winning 20 games, but like, I don't know, it's still plausible.
So they'll be 21 and 12 after the ACC tournament, or
they win the ACC tournament,
or they win the ACC tournament. Yeah, led by Amsal because they finally get him on the court, and Amsal Delilich captivates the nation the way I was trying to think of that big guy's name. What was NC State's big guy? Like really big guy.
DJ Burns.
Yes, that's it. I was trying to think of it and never really felt like looking it up. But Amsal Delilich will captivate the nation the way that DJ Burns captivated the nation. And it'll be amazing. Finally, it'll all happen. It'll all come together. All right. Paul Sebastian wants to know, at what point do you decide to switch up the starting lineup? I know you're one of the best players to try and work out of a slump, but when you lose 7 of 9 to me, it's time to find the players who want to win. Well, remember, they've lost 8 out of 10, so it's actually even worse than you thought, Paul. I don't know what Jalen Lowe's situation is going to be on Saturday. Jeff Capel said after the game last night he's in the concussion protocol. Apparently, Tim O'Toole said I shouldn't even say that. Like, I didn't hear this, but I was told that Tim O'Toole said on the post-game radio show that, Lowe got hurt, came back in and played about 2 minutes and then went out. During those 2 minutes when he was on the court, he was like not remembering what they're supposed to be doing, like forgetting the plays and stuff like that. So like, if it is a concussion, who knows? Maybe he doesn't play on Saturday. Now they're done. Now they would be down low and done. I think Brandon Cummings goes into the starting lineup. That's probably what you have. You probably have Leggett, Cummings, Austin, Guillermo, and Corin. But you're going to have to get Jorge in there more. You're going to have to get Amsal in there more. And you're going to have to get Papa Conti in there more just to be able to rest some of these guys and move guys around. It's not going to be a blessing in disguise. But, like, dang, dude, I want to see some of these other players play. I like, Brandon Cummings made an impact, Like, here again, I think it might have been, was it the Carolina game late in the first half where like Cummings and Jorge made a bunch of plays? Yeah. Like, let them play, let them play. But I mean, we're banging our heads against the wall on this and just saying the same things over and over again. I mean, we spent the last hour, or according to this, 58 minutes and 30 seconds, just saying, hey, they should let Brandon Cummings play, and it doesn't matter if their defense is bad. Oh, well, we'll see what happens on Monday or on Saturday. You going to pick Pitt to beat Miami, Jim?
Probably. I don't know if I'll pick them to cover the spread. It depends what that is. But like, hey, I will predict them to beat I'll say it right now. Pitt's going to beat Miami on Saturday.
Okay. Jim's on the record.
Everyone on here can come back and revisit this on Saturday evening.
Yeah. Well, it's not like we're going to have like a post-game show or something. So maybe next Wednesday.
We'll remember. These guys will keep the receipts.
We might have to switch it up next week. We might have to go on Thursday night. Do they play on Tuesday night? Yeah, they play on Tuesday night next week. The Syracuse game at home.
Yes.
But I might be occupied on Wednesday, so I might have to move it to Thursday. But I will let you know, Jim, and I will let everyone else know well in advance of whether we have to switch up our days next week. Either way, we will be live, as always, for the Panther-Lair Show here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. If you're worried that you're going to miss it because we switched the times, one way to be sure you don't miss it is if you subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, turn on your notifications, and then you can you'll get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live, every time we have something going on right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com to get all the Pitt sports news you can handle. And stay tuned right here for another Morning Pitt. We got a good one tomorrow. I think it's a fun episode. And then we'll have our mailbag on Friday, as always. So thank you, Jim, for your time tonight. Thanks for everybody in the comments and questions. You guys have a good rest of the night, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.